And so, hi everybody. Yeah, Daisy here. I had the itch to do a drawing tutorial, and I asked on DeviantArt what people wanted to see, if they even wanted to see a drawing tutorial. So, yeah, the thing that I got suggestions for, which I'm blanking on the names right now, but I'll credit you guys in, like, text. You guys suggested that I cover shading and lighting your art, specifically because I do like soft color shading, and a lot of people seem to have difficulty doing soft shading, but hopefully what I tell you will be helpful. And yeah. You've probably already read this slide by now, but if you see stuff, if you find this helpful, please let me know. I don't know it's helpful unless you tell me. So here's what we're gonna start with. My general philosophies about shading and lighting, and my specific techniques about shading and lighting. So the philosophies will just be like my thought process about it, how I'm gonna, like, how I think about shading, and then my specific techniques, I'll actually go into Photoshop and show you, like, literally what I do. So, yeah. I should preface this with, like, you do need to practice and use, like, technical art knowledge to be able to shade your work effectively, whether you're doing soft shading or not. So, hopefully the, like, theory behind how I shade helps out, whether, like, no matter what kind of shading you're doing. Yeah. Reminder, this is my opinion. Don't take it as gospel, please. I'm just a young artist, man. Alrighty, so always remember to follow the form. Understanding how your art is geometrically in 3 dimensions is really important. How you shade defines the depth and the shape of things in your picture. I know it's like, it can be really tough, but knowing how to draw geometric shapes in perspective will help you a lot. If you only understand your art in 2 dimensions, you're only going to be able to shade it in 2 dimensions. So going out and studying and learning the contours of the face and, like, what sort of shapes, not like circles and squares, but spheres and cubes, learning what sort of real life shapes make up your drawing will help you know how to shade. And this is my tip for actually doing this. If you need to draw a wireframe over your art, if you haven't heard of a wireframe before and you've played like Smash Brothers or whatever, you've probably seen them before. They're basically just like grids that go over your character, showing the contours and the actual shape of it when you don't have like a physical one in front of you to represent its actual dimensions. And of course, you've heard this everywhere for anyone who's ever actually watched a video on shading and lighting. Mark where your light source is if you aren't going to be able to remember. Like, just keep it in mind. That way, you don't come back to your drawing months later and go, oh, where did I put that light source? I don't know. Whatever. So, next tip is pick lighting that suits your work best and enhances the composition and the colors. For example, if you're drawing a cold, nighttime scene, then use cool colors. If it's warm and happy, then use warm colors. This goes into color theory more, so depending on what you want to express about your scene, you should pick colors to shade based on that. Don't just use black or white to do your lighting and shading because it results in a really muddy work. Yeah, and you'll notice my side note, I tend to do purple all the time because I'm indecisive and it works great. And technically it's not right between cool and warm. You can make cool and warm versions of any color, but that's really crazy color theory stuff that I won't go into in this video. Also, consider the direction and intensity of your lighting and how it will make your focal point look. If you're doing a super dramatic scene, then you'll end up with, like, you'll want to do lighting that's really intense and from the side to create really interesting shapes. If you want it to look real cute and you trust everything in the picture and it's totally safe, then go for something soft and warm. This is kind of like, think about the tone of like your favorite movies or comics and how they light their scenes. So, yeah, and characters with extreme lighting from any direction can look evil. Yeah, and that kind of, you can make like some really cute and adorable characters look evil if you light them properly. Yeah. This is my personal thing. All your art teachers will probably yell at you for this. Don't be afraid to lie about what it would look like, but not too much. If you need to be able to see something to understand what's going on in your picture, then make sure it's well lit. You know, if there wouldn't actually be a rim light on that arm, but you need to pop that arm out from the darkness, just put a rim light on it and try to make it make sense. But if you go too crazy with that, then it just looks like you're putting colors and lights everywhere for no reason. So do still think about it when you're going to do things like this. So, yeah. Now we're gonna hop into the art program. Woo! But I'm gonna keep recording this so that I can swipe this audio and shove it somewhere else later. So, before we actually start shading, these things are specific to me. They're what I do, they might not work for you, but feel free to try on them and even improve on them. It's how we've gotten where we are art-wise anyway in the world. And I rely heavily on clipping masks and blending modes, so if you're looking to replicate these, make sure your art program of choice has them. Also, not all art programs let you do the same things with clipping masks. So if you try to do something that I do here and it doesn't work and you're in a different program, that's probably why. I know how to use Photoshop and kind of sort of other art programs, so I really can't help you out with technical problems. So, for the initial coloring, use whatever colors you want or are supposed to, except for pure black or white. Remember here that you're just applying a flat base color. If you make your value range too wide by using pure white or black, you cannot make them brighter or darker later. So keep that in mind. That's why you constantly see anime characters wearing black shirts that are actually like that are actually like a dark navy blue, so that they can still shade them later. So that's a really important thing, because nothing in real life is pure black or pure white. Like, just take a look at things that you understand to be black and then look at the lighting around it compared to other things that are black. Are they the same exact shade? Or if they're different amounts if they have different amounts of reflectivity, they'll be a different color. So just think about your colors before you put them down and plan for shading them. So when it comes to shadows, I do a clipping mask onto the flat color. Then I use a multiply layer on about 73-ish%. If you want it darker, you can raise the opacity to make it darker. If you want a second one, if you need like even deeper shadows, just make another multiply layer and adjust the opacity as you like. This is where, never mind, we're gonna do lights. I was gonna talk about a thing way too early. So I also do a clipping mask onto the flat color for this, and I put it above my shadows because when you light things, they cause shadows, so lights take priority over shadows. Set them to overlay, use white, and don't go overboard. That's what I do. Feel free to play with other blending modes. Make sure you use a lower opacity or pressure or have pressure sensitivity, because using overlay and pure white can completely blow out your colors if you do it wrong. After that, I move on to doing highlights and other extras. All of these things happen above your line art layer. Hopefully, you've got a line art layer. If not, you're probably painting, and I can't help you with that. I'm not very good at digital painting yet. So, for your highlights, I usually grab a hard brush or pure white. This is why you couldn't use pure white before. And apply hard light shadows to wherever they'd be the strongest, or where you want to pop things out of the shadows. Both work. Don't go too nuts, otherwise you'll make things look bad. That's not a good thing. Don't do that. Then I like to add stuff like bloom. Bloom is when when things that reflect light just really emanate it out more. If you play with the settings in a video game, they usually have a bloom setting. When things are too bright in a video game, they usually have too much bloom. So yeah, I grab a soft brush of whatever color my light is, and I set a blending mode that will make things underneath of that lighter. And anything where I had a light or a highlight before, I'll go over it to imply the light's reflecting off into the environment around it. So, yeah. You can also add dust and God rays if you're feeling like your picture is still looking like garbage and you need to go just a little bit more ham. Again, be careful about adding too much. I do a lot of a little bit of effects, which is kind of, sort of, maybe a good thing. I don't know. I'll judge that later. But for dust, I just use literally a dust brush. You can download them anywhere you'd like, or a splatter paint brush, which I also use for my stars. And I just fiddle with the brush settings until I get somewhere. It speeds it up immensely. It makes things look actually random, so you don't fall into the pit of making a accidentally patterned sky or dusty area. So yeah. And God rays, I kind of do the same thing as normal bloom and lights. You just gotta make sure they flow in straight lines, because light is linear in nature. Unless you're doing some crazy refraction stuff, but we're not doing that here. So just make sure you follow your lighting rules, think about your light source, and anything that would cause shadows. Remember, God rays only ever really happen because the air is dusty. Or because there's other things that are letting shadows in. Like trees, showing light from the sky above them. Yeah! Last minute fixes to your shading. So there are gradient maps. They're technically not shading, but they affect the color greatly. Think of them as Instagram filters for drawing, but on crack. Down in the description, I'll put links to like 1 or 2 really good videos that explain gradient maps. They essentially are a great way to fix your color palette if you made mistakes picking your color palette and it's everywhere, because they'll take the actual value of the color and reassign another color to it. And when you combine them with blending modes, you change how those rules are applied to the colors you have. So, yeah. Also, you can do hue adjustments. If you don't like what color your shadows are, you can use a hue adjustment layer that clipping masks onto your shading layer, and then boom, you just slide it around. And if you want your shadows to be vomit green now, you can do that. Or if you want them to be burnt sienna, you can do that. How rad is that? You can also do that with your highlights or any of your other layers that you don't like what color they are. So, yeah, you did it. I hope this helped you. I hope this wasn't too long and that I actually explained things, because I didn't want to just tell you guys how to do it. I wanted to give you the theory and the thought process, because that'll be a lot more valuable in the long run. So, yeah. Oh, hey, I see you made it to the end of this video. And now you're here at this fancy end card. So I hope you had a good time and you learned some stuff. Don't be afraid to ask me questions down in the comments or suggest more tutorials that you might want to see later. And of course, thank you very much to my patrons, which I'm gonna pull up that gosh danged sweet tasty list, which is Big Print, Danny Jones, Holly King, Nicholas Bartholomew, The Painted Dog, and Scarlett Brooks. You guys help make stuff like this possible. So, yeah. If you had a good time, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. Don't slap it too hard, though. That's not nice. Yeah, have a great day.